on the money tonight. It's a question we're getting all the time now. Has the housing market hit bottom? We sent a camera to an open house to see what else is on the minds of buyers and sellers. We turn now to the epicenter of the recession, housing. The question that everyone is asking, when will we hit bottom? Joining us now is Dolly Lenz, Vice Chairman of Prudential Douglas Elliman, one of the largest real estate brokerage firms in the country. And so what is the answer to that question, Dolly? Have we hit bottom?
Not yet, but we have a lot of good signs. Housing construction dropped in April to 12.8% to a record low, and that's 54% over last April. That's all good news, even though it may not appear to be, because if we have less housing, we'll have more ability to absorb what's already on the market. We need that sharp pullback in construction in order to sell the existing inventory. I think it's great news, and it's the next move forward.
And you were saying that pullback also was a lot of that was apartments, too.
Exactly. It's almost all apartments. 46% of the 12.8% is apartments, which is great.
All right. And so otherwise, we're seeing perhaps many areas of the country or some areas of the country still having problems in terms of the bottom.
Areas of the country are still having problems, but everything looks so much better. You know, the administration's $8,000 giveaway, you know, for new purchasers, everything just looks so much better to everyone, and it's all about confidence.
That first-time home buyer's credit definitely great for a lot of those folks who are looking for their first home. We have Dan on the phone right now. He's trying to sell $1 million home. He's on the money line right now. Dan?
Our home has been on the market for about 6 weeks for $1.85 million. It's a unique and classic English Tudor with wonderful curb appeal. It has a newly renovated kitchen and connecting family room, which are great spaces for family gatherings and entertaining. Lots of space with 6 bedrooms, 3 full baths, and 2 half baths. The market has been understandably very slow, but we have noticed a slight uptick in activity in recent weeks, but still have not received any offers. My question is, from your point of view, what are some of the unique challenges of selling a high-end home in this market?
Well, you definitely have the sales pitch down for the home. That part you definitely did beautifully. I'm like, you know, on pins and needles looking at this home and listening to what you're saying. But what does he need to do to really sell this house?
Well, the biggest thing he needs to do is price the property well. Price it to sell if you'd like to sell sooner. If you can wait, then don't price it to sell, but do everything else you need to do. Make sure all the attributes of the house are listed for you so everyone knows who comes into the house, this is a great house, it's a great school district, it has a tennis court, it has playgrounds. Whatever all the fabulous attributes are of your house, make sure they're communicated to everyone who walks into that house. But pricing, I have to tell you, is a number 1, number 2, and number 3 indicator of whether your house will sell next.
Because it sounds like he has all those points down very well. I just wonder if in the area that he's in.
But it may not be communicated. You know, sometimes the owner knows, everyone thinks everybody knows, but it's not communicated to the buyers. It's really important.
And there's a huge difference between what really the value of the property is and what it may sell for. The value of what it may be a year or 2 from now is entirely different from what it is today. And I'll give you an example. I have a home in Arizona, just down the street. Recently built, $3.3 million house, went into foreclosure. The bank sold it for $800,000. Now, they were asking a little over 2, thought that was a steal because they were taking such a big hit. And, you know, while we've got, I think, a temporary lull in things getting worse, for those of you out there, and especially you, Dan, getting ready to sell this house, I would get out while the getting is good, because it's relatively good to what I think it's going to be by this time next year.
So, Dan, how does that sound to you?
Well, it sounds like good advice, and I'm going to take your advice and keep looking at the sales price and selling the house and all of its wonderful attributes.
Will you tell us when you sell it and what you sold it for? Keep us posted.
I'd be glad to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Now, we sent a camera to Dan's house to ask a few questions as well of a lot of folks who were looking at the house at the time. We took this question from Caroline.
Given the current market conditions, why are brokers allowing sellers to price their houses so high?
Dolly, what do you think?
Brokers are advice givers, consultants. You know, they are not telling you what you must price your house at. Someone comes to me and they say, where do you think the market is for my home? And I give them a number, and I give them comps, and I give them information. But at the end of the day, it's the owner that chooses a sales price. And often owners aren't yet realistic. So while the prices may look high, they're probably just a little bit dragged time-wise. Maybe a month from now, they'll get more with it and understand the pricing has to be lower in order to move the house.
Do you find that people who are trying to sell their home, who haven't been in the home for very long, want a higher price than perhaps those who've been in the home 10, 20 years and have actually seen it appreciate?
But they paid so much more for their house.
Yeah.
They have to. A lot of people are underwater on houses they bought recently, so they can't get out unless they're priced on the high side.
Yeah. We're going to go now to Paul, and Paul wanted to know this.
Do you think the lower mortgage rates are going to make the home prices go higher?
We have seen rates come down, and under 5% for 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is pretty good.
That's good news. Rates coming down is part of the whole process that we need to get there to bottom out the market. I don't think it's going to increase pricing in the short term, but over the very long term, it likely will again. But we have to absorb all this inventory before that can happen.
But the lower prices are great for your clients, though, Ivory, in helping them whether they're going to refinance or try to get a new home.
Well, they absolutely are, but I tend to agree with Ron because, you know, I'm a big, tremendous believer in the theory of supply and demand. I still see a lot of for sale signs out there. And so I get the sense that the reason is simple. There was a moratorium on foreclosures. That ended in April. So now you're starting to see more houses go into foreclosure. Unemployment rates still going higher. If you don't have a job, difficult to pay the mortgage. And also, we also know that these interest rates are really temporary. I don't think that they're going to stay at this rate for this long a period of time. And so I suspect that, like Ron just mentioned, the housing prices could definitely go a lot lower than they are right now, particularly if the economy doesn't turn around the way we think it might.
Yeah.
Well, we've got two major issues out there. I mean, one, you talked about supply and demand, Ivory.
Yeah.
Last statistic I saw that banks are bringing into REO, 2 for every 1 they're getting rid of. So we're stockpiling inventory for future. You said there's a moratorium, but they're just starting this process right now. Number 2, the option and the Alt-A's starting next quarter are going to be a major problem. And we were talking about it, Sharon, that some of the government programs for people to be able to refinance where they don't have the loan to value, it's out there, but no one's been successful in doing a refi, so I'm not so sure the programs are even working.
Yeah,
yet.
well, they don't know how to access the program, some of them, and they don't know exactly when it's going to actually take place. They're taking their time and trying to get it done.
One comment I got for Dolly,
Yeah.
I traveled the country and we had meetings yesterday in New York, and the comment with my partner here with me is that everybody's so doggone optimistic in New York.
Yeah.
All the rest of the country, they're pretty down and just figuring out how to make ends meet, but it seems to be a lot of euphoria here, and I'm wondering if maybe that we're on an island here and things are starting to improve, but I don't think New York was the first in it. Is it going to be the first out of it? That's a question.
We were definitely not first in it, and I'm not even sure, I have to tell you, other than absorption, I'm not sure we're even in it, because price-wise, pricing has not dropped.
Yeah.
If you look at the actual apartment versus the actual apartment, you'll see it's on a straight line. It hasn't dropped. Statistically, it's other issues.
We get so many calls from people who have second homes in Florida or, out west, and they are so underwater on their mortgages, they don't know what to do, and they don't know whether they're ever going to be able to sell that house for what they paid for.
Exactly.
And they can barely rent it to cover the housing
Real
costs.
estate is a local discussion. It's very local, which is to your point. It's not about, you just talked about something in Arizona. Yes, that happened in Arizona. That hasn't yet happened in New York. It may never happen in New York. Does it happen in Los Angeles? It's local.
And places where it hasn't boomed, like Pittsburgh, where I'm from, it's just stabilized. It's just been the same pace. And so they don't have that same euphoria because they never really had the boom time before, and they're not as depressed because they never had.
Well, you think Pittsburgh's stable? You should come to Omaha. Nothing ever went up. It doesn't go down. It's a great place to be.
We want to come visit. We want to come visit. Well, we thank you very much, Dolly. Great information. Thank you for joining us. Dolly's going to come back for tonight's Web Extra with tips on how to negotiate or rent out your summer home. And if you're buying or selling a home and you want us to answer your questions, call us, email us, text us, and you could be on the show. And we're going to have more solutions for you after this.